Welcome back to the Deep 404. I'm going to give Russian Ministry of Defense weekly summary, just a weekly update that we get from them on the Ukrainian reported losses in terms of men and equipment. Ukraine is continuing to suffer. This week, again, the Russian Ministry of Defense estimates about 4,700 Ukrainian men and women, both killed and wounded in the fighting along the front line. As I've said before, these numbers that I will read out come from the Russian Ministry of Defense, so accept them with your own level of skepticism. I do use these figures because they are consistently provided. On a daily basis, the Ministry of Defense provides a report from its fighting units on the reported equipment losses in terms of tanks and infantry fighting vehicles and motor vehicles and artillery pieces and that type of thing, as well as estimates for the numbers of Ukrainian servicemen killed and wounded. The way that the numbers of killed and wounded are reportedly, pardon me, I am getting a summer cold, I think, in the Southern Hemisphere. These numbers are reportedly obtained by the Russian Ministry of Defense through intercepts of Ukrainian communication channels. The Russian Defense Minister, Sergei Shoigu, has a number of months ago indicated that's how they get these numbers. Anyhow, so I will just run through a little bit here. Hopefully you can see the screen. This is covering the period of the 16th to the 22nd of December 2023. In the Kupiansk direction, so starting in Kupiansk, which on the map is the top of this orange line here, and the Kupiansk direction, this is where the Zapad group of forces are operating, and fighting has clearly been intense. They are reporting that they have repelled 53 Ukrainian attacks in this week, involving the Ukrainian 14th, 43rd, 60th, 115th Mechanised and 95th Air Assault Brigades. This fighting has been reportedly centered around Sinkovka and Olshana in the Kharkov region. Reports are that the Ukrainian losses are 355 troops, 4 tanks, including 2 Leopard tanks, 19 armoured fighting vehicles, 13 motor vehicles, and 12 field artillery guns. Moving down then to the bottom of this orange line on the map, to just above where the blue begins, is the Krasny Liman area. In the Krasny Liman area, units of the Center group of forces have been operating with the support of aviation and artillery fire. They have repelled 13 attacks of assault groups of the armed forces of Ukraine. These attacks have come from the 24th, the 63rd and the 116th Mechanised Brigades and the 12th Special Brigade. Fighting has been around the Chervonaya Dobrova region, the Petrovskoy region, and the Kuzmino in Lugansk People's Republic, and Torskoy in the Donetsk People's Republic. During the week's fighting, the reports are that up to 1,155 Ukrainian troops have been killed and wounded, 1 tank, 19 armoured fighting vehicles, 21 motor vehicles, and 7 field artillery guns. Moving then down to this blue region here, centered, this is Bakhmut and Donetsk, down where the blue line turns into the yellow. Around this area, it has been heavy fighting this week, led from the Russian side by the Yuga group of forces, supported by air and artillery fire. They have improved their position along the front line. They have repelled 43 attacks from the Ukrainian armed forces, involving the 24th Mechanised, the 79th Air Assault Brigade near Sumy, in Belokorovka and Mariinka. Also, units of the 28th, 30th, 42nd, 93rd Mechanised and 57th Motorised Infantry Brigades of the Armed Forces of Ukraine near Kurdimovka, Klesheyevka, Krasnoye and Andriivka assaults have been repelled. Reported Ukrainian losses in this area over the week have been more than 1,610 killed and wounded. 3 tanks destroyed, 17 armoured fighting vehicles, 1 HIMARS launcher, 24 motor vehicles, and 44 field artillery guns. Now, I can't stress the importance of that number there. 44 field artillery guns in the Donetsk region in a week. This is, of course, added on to the 7 in the Krasny Liman area and the 12 reportedly destroyed in the Kupiansk direction. Now, this is concurring with other reporting that we are getting from both Western and Ukrainian Telegram channels that the Ukrainians are suffering under somewhere between a 5-1 and a 10-1 overmatch of Russian artillery fire. Now you can just see that if the Ukrainians are being pushed backwards and are losing 44 field artillery pieces in one area of fighting in 1 week, it makes it easy. It makes it plausible, very plausible, that the Russians do have a large artillery overmatch in terms not only of ammunition, but in guns, tubes themselves that they can use to fire upon the Ukrainians. Moving down to the South Donetsk region, here along our yellow line, this is where units of the Russian Vostok group of forces they operate. They have reportedly repelled 10 Ukrainian attacks of the AFUs, the Armed Forces of Ukraine's 58th Motorized Infantry, 72nd Mechanized, 79th Air Assault, 127th and 128th Territorial Defense Brigades near Novo-Mikhailovka, Urozhaina, Staromayorsk and Priutne in the Zaporozhye region. Reported Ukrainian losses were more than 670 troops, 2 tanks, 6 armoured fighting vehicles, 19 motor vehicles, and another 12 field artillery guns. Moving along to the Zaporozhye region, which on the map here is the green area of the map. That's the circled area that you can see there is Tokmak. Remember that Tokmak was really the first targeted city that was planned to be achieved by the Ukrainian counteroffensive in June, which would have then allowed the Ukrainian forces to continue on to Melitopol at the bottom of the map there, and then onto the Sea of Azov. In Zaporozhye, there have been 6 Ukrainian attacks repelled near Robotne and Verbove. Damage was inflicted upon personnel and military hardware of the Ukrainian 33rd, 65th, 116th, 117th, 118th Mechanized, 128th Mountain Assault, 82nd Airborne, and 14th National Guard battalions of the armed forces close to Novodanilovka, Malaya Tokmacha, and Novopropopovka in the Zaporozhye region. Reports are that up to 390 Ukrainian troops were killed and wounded, 1 tank destroyed, 5 armoured fighting vehicles, 19 motor vehicles, and 10 more field artillery guns. Finally, if we move across to the Kherson region, in Kherson, where the Ukrainians have been continuing to try to establish and restock and hold on to a bridgehead near Krinky. In the Kherson direction, reports from the Russian Ministry of Defense is that all attempts launched by the Ukrainian sabotage groups to land on the islands on the left bank of the Dnieper River were thwarted. Now, there was video I saw yesterday of a group of Ukrainian forces getting across on a boat into what looked to be very long reeds or long grass, and then very shortly after walking straight into a Russian ambush. And they were captured. Fortunately, it appeared as though those 3 men they fell to the ground and they surrendered and were captured and were not killed in that ambush. In the Kherson direction, Airstrikes and artillery fire defeated units of the AFU's 36th and 37th Marine Brigades in the area of Tyagynka and Belozerka. Reportedly, the armed forces of Ukraine lost up to 510 troops killed and wounded, 1 tank, 37 motor vehicles, 24 boats, and 20 field artillery guns. So that's 20, 30, 42, 44, 86, 93. That's over 100 artillery pieces reportedly lost in a week of fighting. Now, the Ukrainians aren't able to replace these artillery pieces. They are losing them. They are losing, in some cases, NATO-supplied pieces, which aren't continuing to be supplied to them. As an example here, Germany has announced a new military package for aid to Ukraine, and it includes 3 Gepard self-propelled guns, 35mm ammunition for the Gepards, ammunition for Leopard 2A6s, 10 Vector UAVs, some tractors, some semi-trailers, 2 tractors, 5 semi-trailers, 8 trucks, 2 mine-clearing vehicles, 2 border guard vehicles, 8 other vehicles, 2 AMPS communication protection systems for helicopters, 2,500 155mm shells, and 40mm shells for automatic grenade launchers. The 155mm shells, those 2,500, would be about 2 days, perhaps 2.5 days of ammunition usage for the Ukrainians at the current numbers, which is somewhere between 5 and 10 times less than what the Russians are firing. And it appears as though the Russians are restraining themselves in their fire in some cases, and that are perhaps stockpiling shells for a larger, bigger offensive that may come in the future. So, Ukraine suffering large troop losses, nearly 4,700 again this week. Over the last 6 weeks or so, these numbers have been consistent around that number, 4,500 to 5,000 troop losses killed and wounded per week. These really are problematic for Ukraine. We can see this reflected in the reports this week of Zelensky saying that General Zaluzhny has said that he needs 500,000 more men to continue fighting in 2024. This has now caused reports that Ukraine is looking to send notices out to Ukrainian men between the ages of about 25 and 60 who have left Ukraine and who are in neighbouring nations, who are in Germany and Romania and Poland, and they will be requested to return to Ukraine to enlist and fight. And while there's no immediate threat given in this announcement of what the penalties would be for not returning, however, there have in the past been indications that there would be either some form of imprisonment in the country that you are in if you didn't comply with this. This was reported some months ago in a case in Ireland, or that if upon returning to Ukraine, that you would effectively be thrown into a military prison and sent to fight anyhow, even if you didn't enlist. So yeah, the news is bad for Ukraine, and the slaughter of Ukraine's men and women continues. The loss of unreplaceable pieces of military equipment continues. The Russian Ministry of Defense reports that 4 more Ukrainian airplanes were shot down this week, 1 Su-27, 2 MiG-29s and a MiG-25, as well as 3 helicopters. So Ukraine is entering a position where they are going to start to see some saturation level of failure. And what I mean by that is they're going to reach a point soon where this Russian overmatch in terms of artillery and artillery pieces is going to lead to faster and faster capitulation of Ukrainian positions, as they simply lack the ammunition and the artillery to fire the ammunition to stop the Russian forces advancing on them. Okay. Look, I hope you're enjoying the channel. I look forward to speaking to you again, and I may try to get out another short episode this weekend if I can.